On behalf of the Department of Political Science, University of Kerala, India, I warmly welcome you all to the fifth and final session of the international webinar, Mapping China's Rise, Regional Assessments. The theme for this session is China in East Asia and Indo-Pacific. So there are 6 interesting presentations that are coming up. Before moving on to this presentation, let me welcome the chair of the session, Professor Joseph Anthony, Director, Center for Martian Studies, University of Kerala, India. I welcome Professor Joseph Anthony. Professor Joseph Anthony, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to Dr. Sally Burt. First of all, I express my gratitude to the Department of Political Science and Dr. Josukutty for inviting me to chair this important session. And I congratulate the Department of Political Science and Josukutty for selecting a very important topic of discussion. See, one of the most important aspect we have to consider is this. See, the rise of China is the most important phenomenon in the 21st century. See, almost all serious scholars who are dealing with international politics consider this as the most important phenomenon in the 21st century. And this particular aspect, in fact, defining global politics as well as regional politics, in my opinion. You know that, see, if you look at the global politics, know that the most important, see, we call it hegemonic power in the world is United States of America. In almost all discussions, in almost all reports, and see, so many think tanks are presenting so many reports. And in all these reports, they categorically stated that the rise of China is the most important element in global politics, and China has become a challenger to US supremacy in the global politics. And we have to see, face this challenge. And in fact, this has been defining the American foreign policy for the last 2 decades. If you look at, see, after the emergence of the 21st century. You know that, see, the second aspect, apart from the first aspect, the rise of China, the second aspect which is defining the global politics is the US-China conflict. See, we are facing this. See, it was an important event in international politics. You know that, see, during Obama's period, they have presented the Asia pivot policy, and Trump changed it as Indo-Pacific. And see, they are trying to invite so many friends in the Indo-Pacific to contain China. And the third thing is this: the emergence of China and the resultant US-China relations or US-China conflict define the regional politics also. See, the topic itself is mapping China's rise, and the subtitle is regional assessment. See, as a result of this, everybody knows that whenever a power emerges, there will be a lot of ripples, collateral effect. Now, you have seen this, see, whenever Britain rose at the global level, there were problems. China is also creating a lot of problems as a result of its hegemonic power. And whenever China becomes a global power, we can expect the same thing. And China is emerging, and as a result, that see, so many scholars stated that China is asserting. China is asserting. That's a reality. See, China is trying to see to regain its past glory under their own Tianxia. They are creating trying to create their own global order. See, at the global level, we can see the conflict between United States of America in the global order building. That's a reality. And this particular attempt to create this particular attempt from China's part to create its own Tianxia is creating a kind of security dilemma in the minds of almost all countries, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. See, Australia is finding it very difficult to cope with the Chinese rise. See, Japan is trying to difficult, almost all nations. And we know that now the South China Sea is one of the most important arena of conflict in the name of UNCLOS, in the name of free and open seas, FONOPS, etc. See, almost all countries, see now, we in India also facing that kind of challenge. See, China is asserting in the Ladakh region for the last 20 months, we are facing China. See, there are problems. So this is what is happening. See, in a sense, in a brief manner, I can say that see, almost all these nations are facing a kind of undergoing a kind of security dilemma because of the China's rise. And nations are trying to address how we can address this particular challenge. China is imposing some kind of sanctions, or stopped some kind of coal import from China, or Australia, wine import from Australia. These kinds of issues are there, and that is affecting them economically. And Taiwan. See, the world is looking at the problem. What will happen in Taiwan? See, will China intervene militarily in that particular place, which China claims it is a part of China? And that problems are there, and problems are there in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, Tibet. So many problems are there internally in China. And at the same time, see, the regional powers, see, Vietnam has problems, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these countries are having their own problems. And we know that we can see from scholars from these countries, the issues, how they are trying to cope with the rise of China. Or they are trying to see, on the one hand, they will try to map the rise of China, and at the same time, on the basis of their own assessment, how this rise will going to affect these countries as well as the world as a whole. And this is a bold attempt from the part of Josukutty and the Department of Political Science, see, who himself is an expert of China, India-China relations. And we are eager to listen to scholars from different continent and different nations in the world. And India is as a neighbor, and we had a border war in 1962. See, we are also eager to know, and our India's foreign Prime Minister Modi is trying to develop some kind of a strategic relationship with ASEAN nations. See, America, Australia. See, we are members of the Quad, and another security mechanism in the name of AUKUS has come, and almost all these developments are taking place, and we are happy to invite you scholars to participate in this seminar. And we have 6 scholars, and the organizers have informed me that the session can go up to 11:15. So you can take 15 minutes each for your presentation, and after that we will have a kind of discussion. And the participants are Professor Dennis Tsai, Mr. Ko King Ki, Dr. Sally Burt, Dr. Georgian V. Joan, Dr. Sargent Joseph, and Ashika S. Prasad. I'm happy to invite first Professor Dennis Tsai for your presentation, and the time starts now. After 13 minutes, okay, I will give you a kind of I will remind you that there will be 2 more minutes, and after 2 more minutes, please stop your presentation. Okay.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Right. Yes. Sure. Proceed.
Okay. Please allow me to upload my PowerPoint. Wait a minute. Okay, did you look it?
Yes.
Visible. Thank you. Okay, the first study I have to appreciate and I'm glad to be here and to see everyone. Especially thanks to the Joseph. So many friends online and see you, I'm so excited today. And secondly, I asked for leave 1 hour later because I have a class. So after my presentation, I will stay online. But maybe 1 hour later, I'm sorry, I have a class, so I asked for leave. And today, we talk about the mapping China's rise. This issue is very significant for us. For all of you, this problem is China rise is a problem of development, but for Taiwan, is about the survival issues. We to trade with the enemy, that Taiwan to become very dangerous. People say very dangerous and dilemma. But I think today my job is to share some information and to tell everyone now, and China rise for us is a very complicated sentiment and a very, how to say, this feel very difficult to mention about the China rise for Taiwanese people because we have very complicated national identity. And to just see this, the cover is about, according to the Economist cover story in 2021, last year in May. It shows that the current situation in Taiwan with the most dangerous place on earth. But it's very ironic and interesting that according to our Ministry of Finance, the data in 2021 about our export and import that to mainland China, especially export to mainland China, account for the record high of 43.9%. At the same time, last year, from October 1st, 2021 to the October 4th, that is China's National Day. You can find that a totally of nearly 150 Chinese military aircraft enter across Taiwan's National Air Defense Identification Zone, about the ADIZ. The number and the frequencies of which have never been seen before. Besides, the U.S. military, the report that they still have more 2,000 ballistic missiles ended at Taiwan until now. But it's very interesting and ironic that the table of the degrees of trade dependence between Taiwan and China, you can see this the table from the 2000 to 2020, the proportion of Taiwan's trade export to China, including the Hong Kong, from the 24.4% to 43.9%. The average is the 40%. And another side shows that the proportion of China, including Hong Kong's trade export to Taiwan, is only 10%, almost the average is the 10%. So from this result, you can find that the proportion has maintained roughly 40%, which shows that Taiwan is very, very, very dependent on the mainland China market. That's all saying that the businessmen has no country, that they have no the homeland, but the market is their homeland. The market is their countries. So sometimes we left each other. China, they don't need to use the force to take down Taiwan. They should use the money to buy us. It's okay. So in the meanwhile, it makes Taiwan's economy overly dependent on China and to fall into a security dilemma. So this paper, I want to use the classical, the realism to explain why we want to trade with our enemy, because over the past 400 years, our ancestors came from the mainland China, and some follow Chiang Kai-shek's government 70 years ago. Some some come from the mainland China in Qing dynasty or Ming dynasty. So it's very complicated. We have the same culture. We use the same tool, speaking the similar language, and developing the common industry. In the end, or result with the enemy is me. Our industrial will be swallowed, and it leads us to security dilemma and help the China rise. It's very, very led us very embarrassing to face this situation. So, and why I use the neoclassical realism, because this theory believes that the scope and ambition of a country's foreign policy affect the country's relative material power. And also, it considers that the impact of power capability on foreign policy is indirect and complex. Understanding the links between the power and policy that require close examination of both the international and the domestic context within which foreign policy is formulated and implemented. For Taiwan, we need the United States security, but we also need the market from the mainland China. This is the dilemma for us. And to see this, the slide, it showed for over the 40 years, Taiwan businessmen provide the great contribution toward the economic development of China from the 1980 to 2008. Taiwanese businessmen in China total in international trade accounted to $1,445.8 billion United dollars, account for 9.89% of China's same period total trade value. In addition, from the 1990 to 2007, total export of Taiwan's businessmen in China accounted to United States $545.5 billion United States dollars, account the same period total export. So in the 40 years since the reform and opening of the mainland China, China becomes the world's second largest economy. And the value of the trade in goods ranks first in the world. However, we think this is not solely based on its own efforts, but relies on the injection of international resources. Of course, Taiwan, has also contributed a lot of resources in this process. Taiwanese businessmen went to China to invest and set up the factories that years, investing ample capital, advanced technology, and management experience, and become a key force for China's economic growth to integrate with international economy and trade. For example, you see this slide show the world's largest employers. Of course, the rate is the Hong Hai. You can see Hong Hai, the precision factory, the Fushikang. The Fushikang is the headquarters in Taiwan. You can see over the 1.2 billion people, the employers in China. That's the reason why Taiwanese businessmen came to China in 1990s. The several factors. The very important is about the accident, the 1989, the Tiananmen Square massacre. At the Tiananmen massacre, at that time, that's in spring 1989, immediately China suffered because 1997 to 1998, the Asian financial crisis started in Thailand. But for Taiwan had very sound financial system and strong small and medium-sized enterprise dominated by the manufacturers. So therefore, Taiwan's economic survival this crisis at that time. However, because following the 1997 financial crisis, Taiwan's manufacturing industry moved to Chinese market because of to avoid exchange rate rules. That's the main reason for Taiwanese businessmen. The largest scale shift to development of the manufacture in mainland China comes from because the similar geography, the language, and identity. So I try to use the SWOT model to analyze the condition for Taiwanese businessmen to enter China, as shown in this figure. You can see the left side, right side, the strength for Taiwanese people, Taiwanese businessmen. It's easier for us to invest because the same environment is similar to Taiwan. We speak the same language, almost the same language. We have the same culture. We have the same nations, the blood and neighbor is neighboring nearby the Taiwan, and we have the common historical background. And some people think that they are Taiwanese, but also the Chinese. But some people think they still only the Chinese identity is the Chinese. Of course, here's another opportunity to Taiwanese businessmen. It's easier to develop and successful in China than other countries. But on the contrary, he had the weakness and the threat. The first is our industry is easier to be translated by the mainland China. And we were over realized on the Chinese market. Our economy is vulnerable to China's control and threat. And this is the reason why our government is sometimes want us to have the new bond policy to focus on the Southeastern Asia now to encourage our businessmen to create a new market in Southeastern Asia against the Chinese market. But I have still to show that it's very interesting. Ironic from you can see that's it's the most public have the negative views of China. Is the Pew Research in 2021 in June, the Pew Research Center of the United States released some polls concerning the majority of the public hold of negative views of China. You can see the course rate. This is the Taiwan, the anti-China sentiment. Only median level, the 69%. It's not too high. For the Japan, you can see it's 88%. It's unbelievable why Taiwanese choose to close its trading with the enemy. China is not the highest in the anti-China sentiment compared to other country. And this slide showed our Taiwanese identity. This identity, you can find that people Taiwan from 1992 to 2021. The following survey item was used in Dennis. Yes.
You have 2 more minutes. 2 more
okay,
minutes.
2 more minutes. It's okay. It's fine.
And
you can show that some people in our society, they call themselves Taiwanese, some who call themselves Chinese, and some who call themselves both. Do you think, do you say to be Chinese, Taiwanese, or both? Respond score into our 4 category, Chinese and Taiwanese, and both, and no response. So you can find that this is very complicated to explain why some support the China policy, and some people support the anti-China policy, because some people confuse the national identity. So today, we just can tell us when we discuss in China in the world, Chinese people and the Chinese Communist Party must be discussed separately, because anti-China policy is not against the Chinese people. And the Chinese people are basically good for us. They are very friendly, but the China hegemony is not a benign hegemony. The Chinese Communist Party should not be trusted. This our education tell and teach us. We cannot trust the Chinese Communist Party, but the Chinese people are friendly and they are our friend and our body. So that two parallel and ideal struggle sometimes in our mind, Taiwanese people. So China now becoming a superpower in the 21st century. What does this mean for U.S.-China China relation, and what does it mean for Taiwan? For us, it's a survival issue, not a developing issue. Taiwan's increasing economic linkage with China coexisted with the political and military tension. This phenomenon can attribute to the result of Taiwan's trade with the enemy in the political struggle for divided national identity. So today, thank you for the listening and wish you a happy 2022 years. This we so-called the Tiger Year for the Chinese the Happy New Year. Thank you for everyone. Nice to see you today.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Dennis Sai. From his presentation, we got an idea that Taiwan is facing a dual crisis. That is, one is a kind of security dilemma, and another is a trading dilemma, right? These two dilemmas are worrying apart from the existence threat from the part of China. And thank you for a good presentation, Professor Dennis Sai.